A single ruler once gave away so much gold that he accidentally crashed the value of gold across multiple cities. Historians believe his wealth was greater than that of many kingdoms combined. And yet, most people have never heard his name. That ruler was Mansa Musa. Today, we're uncovering the story of the king who turned a West African empire into the richest power on earth, stunned the medieval world with a journey unlike anything anyone had ever seen, and left behind a legacy that still shapes history more than 7 centuries later. And the most unbelievable part isn't how much gold he owned, it's what he chose to do with it. Before we go further, think about this. If you had unlimited wealth, would you spend it freely, or would you invest it to build a legacy that lasts for generations? Keep that answer in mind, because Mansa Musa faced that exact choice. Imagine waking up one morning as one of the most powerful men on earth, not because you planned it, but because history suddenly handed you the throne. That's exactly what happened around the year 1312. Musa's predecessor, Mansa Abu Bakr II, reportedly became obsessed with discovering what lay beyond the Atlantic Ocean. According to historical accounts, he launched a massive naval expedition and never returned. Just like that, Musa inherited the Mali Empire, one of the fastest-growing kingdoms in the world. Everything changed. Many rulers spend years fighting for power. Musa inherited enormous responsibility overnight. Instead of allowing the empire to weaken during the transition, he strengthened its government, expanded trade, and brought stability to millions of people. What looked like an unexpected promotion became one of history's greatest success stories. His rise reminds us that opportunities often arrive without warning, but preparation determines what happens next. Here's something many people never learn in school. During Mansa Musa's reign, the Mali Empire controlled some of the richest gold deposits on the planet. At the time, historians believe a significant share of the world's known gold came from West Africa. Gold flowed north across the Sahara, while salt, cloth, books, horses, and other valuable goods flowed back into Mali. It wasn't just a kingdom. It was the center of an international trading network connecting Africa, Europe, and the Middle East. Trade built empires. This also destroys one of history's biggest myths, that medieval Africa was isolated or economically insignificant. In reality, Mali was deeply connected to global commerce centuries before many European nations reached their peak. Musa understood that wealth wasn't created by simply owning gold. It grew because people trusted Mali's trade routes, markets, and leadership. His empire proves a timeless lesson. Natural resources may create opportunity, but smart trade and stable leadership turn opportunity into lasting prosperity. Now imagine seeing a caravan so enormous that it stretched for miles across the desert. In 1324, Mansa Musa set out on the Islamic pilgrimage to Mecca, known as the Hajj, accompanied by an estimated 60,000 people. Among them were soldiers, officials, servants, scholars, and merchants. Hundreds of camels carried bags of pure gold, while thousands of attendants wore fine clothing that reflected the empire's incredible prosperity. The world took notice. Every major city along the route buzzed with stories of the mysterious emperor from West Africa. People had never witnessed such a display of wealth combined with generosity. Musa didn't travel simply to impress others. He fulfilled a religious obligation while introducing the Mali Empire to the wider world. Long before newspapers or social media existed, his journey became international news through merchants, travelers, and scholars who carried the story across continents. It proved that a powerful reputation can travel farther than any army. But here's the twist that sounds almost impossible. Mansa Musa became so generous that he accidentally disrupted entire economies. During his pilgrimage, he gave away enormous amounts of gold to the poor, rewarded officials generously, and purchased goods at exceptionally high prices. Cities like Cairo suddenly had far more gold in circulation than before, reducing its value and triggering inflation that historians believe lasted for years. Even wealth has limits. This is one of the earliest recorded examples of how flooding a market with valuable resources can have unintended economic consequences. Musa later realized the damage and reportedly borrowed gold back at high interest to reduce the supply and stabilize prices. Whether every detail of that account is perfectly accurate remains debated, but historians broadly agree that his spending had a significant economic impact. The lesson still applies today. True financial wisdom isn't measured by how much you can spend, but by understanding the consequences of every decision. If you're enjoying uncovering the forgotten stories that shaped our world, make sure you subscribe, because there are countless empires, rulers, and civilizations that changed history but rarely make it into school textbooks. What if I told you Mansa Musa's greatest investment wasn't gold? It was knowledge. After returning from his pilgrimage, he brought architects, scholars, judges, and teachers back to the Mali Empire. Rather than pouring his fortune into endless palaces, he commissioned magnificent mosques, schools, and centers of learning. Cities like Timbuktu began attracting students and intellectuals from across Africa and the Islamic world, transforming the empire into a beacon of education and culture. Knowledge outlasts riches. One of Musa's most influential projects was expanding Timbuktu into a world-renowned center of scholarship. Ancient manuscripts on mathematics, astronomy, medicine, law, and philosophy filled its libraries, preserving ideas that would inspire generations. While gold built the empire's reputation, education secured its future. Musa understood a lesson many leaders still overlook today. Wealth can be lost, but investing in people creates a legacy that can survive for centuries. Centuries before many Europeans had ever seen West Africa, they had already heard stories about Mansa Musa. His fame spread so widely that he appeared on famous medieval maps, often shown holding a large piece of gold to symbolize the unimaginable wealth of the Mali Empire. Merchants, explorers, and rulers became fascinated by the kingdom that seemed to possess endless riches hidden beyond the Sahara. Curiosity changed history. These stories encouraged greater interest in African trade routes and helped place Mali on the global stage. Of course, some accounts exaggerated Musa's fortune over time, blending fact with legend. But one truth remained undeniable. His influence reached far beyond his own borders. He showed that a nation's reputation can become one of its greatest strengths, opening doors long before armies or diplomats ever arrive. Ask almost anyone about Mansa Musa, and you'll probably hear the same claim. He was the richest person who ever lived. But can anyone really measure the wealth of a king who ruled more than 700 years ago? Historians can't calculate his fortune with complete accuracy because medieval records were often incomplete, and there was no modern financial system to compare his assets with today's billionaires. What we do know is that he controlled vast gold resources, profitable trade routes, and one of the most powerful empires of his era. Facts matter most. Another common myth is that Musa's empire relied only on gold. In reality, Mali's success came from agriculture, taxation, trade, skilled administration, and its strategic location along major commercial routes. Gold made headlines, but strong leadership kept the empire thriving. The real lesson is simple. Lasting wealth is built on a strong foundation, not on a single valuable resource. Picture opening a history book and discovering that one of humanity's greatest rulers is mentioned only in passing. That's the reality for Mansa Musa. Despite transforming West Africa into a global center of wealth, trade, and learning, his story is often overshadowed by the histories of Europe and Asia. Yet his influence still echoes today through the surviving manuscripts of Timbuktu, the architectural traditions he encouraged, and the enduring legacy of the Mali Empire. Legacy outlives fortune. Mansa Musa proved that true greatness isn't measured only by the size of a treasury. It's measured by what that wealth accomplishes. He expanded education, strengthened trade, connected cultures, and left behind institutions that survived long after the gold was spent. His mistakes also remind us that even the most powerful leaders must understand the broader consequences of their actions. More than 7 centuries later, his story remains one of history's greatest lessons in leadership, vision, and responsibility. Mansa Musa's journey is unlike any other in history. He inherited an empire unexpectedly, transformed it into a global economic powerhouse, amazed the world with a pilgrimage that became legendary, and invested in education in ways that shaped generations. Along the way, he demonstrated both the extraordinary power of wealth and the responsibility that comes with it. His story challenges many assumptions about the medieval world. It reminds us that innovation, scholarship, and prosperity were flourishing in places that are too often overlooked. And perhaps that's why Mansa Musa continues to fascinate historians today. Not simply because he may have been the richest ruler in history, but because he used his position to build something far greater than personal riches. The next time someone asks who the wealthiest person ever was, remember that the real answer isn't just about gold. It's about influence, vision, and the legacy left behind. And history is filled with more forgotten rulers whose stories are just as incredible. Historical accounts of Mansa Musa vary, and some details, such as the exact size of his caravan, the precise amount of gold he distributed, and estimates of his personal wealth, remain debated among historians. This story is based on the best available historical evidence and scholarly research, while acknowledging that some medieval sources contain exaggerations or conflicting reports.